Gabriel. Thank you for making it here to Studio City. You're coming from Venice, right?
No, I came from West Adams by USC.
Oh, nice. Oh, that's right. You were just mentioning that you live by USC. We met on Venice at the VVMC third Sunday of the month, right?
That's correct, yeah.
You were on a electric vehicle, but it wasn't a motorcycle.
Yeah, well, I think there's still kind of a gray area in that field. It's called a Huck motorbike. And because of the speed and the way that the laws are coming out because of electric vehicles, it's kind of like a gray area between electric bicycle, moped on steroids, because it's 72 volts, so it literally goes about 50 miles per hour potentially.
You're potentially. Yeah. But is yours limited right now, or?
Yeah, it's limited.
Okay. Yeah, actually, it's funny because this is, I'm like at 110 episodes. But episode, I believe, number 6 was Super 73. And I spoke to Michael, and we were talking about how, and this was 3 years ago, we were talking about how the laws were weird, where if it's 31 miles an hour and doesn't have pedals, it's a motorcycle. But if it's 30 miles an hour and you add pedals, it's a bicycle.
Or a motorized bicycle, which is different, because on a motorized bicycle, you only have to register with the DMV a single time ever, never again. No insurance ever, no matter what, and no registration per year or anything like that. And so, it's not, you can make it a bicycle, because I don't think a lot of police departments really know the distinction between whether something's a motorized bicycle or a bicycle. And that's kind of what the gray area is right now on electric bicycles or electric motorbikes.
When did that come into effect?
It's all very kind of in flux. I think I've been riding electric bicycles for a good about 12 years now. And throughout the years, they came up with class 1, class 2. Now they have class 3 in terms of the kind of bicycle it rides, kind of whether it has pegs, the weight, the power ratio, the total speed. But it's kind of it's an ongoing issue, and I think it's just a lot of people dealing with the fact that bicycles are becoming a better way to use transportation.
Yeah, I would think so.
Oh, it's fun. It's a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun. It's more convenient. It's easier. Do you know what the market share is on e-bikes? Or, I mean, I know it's not your expertise.
Yeah,
you're just a fan, but I'm sure it's rising. I was actually talking also to I spoke to them last month. Cake.
Oh,
film with them.
Beautiful bikes.
Yeah. And the way that he was telling me how it's growing in Europe for the service industry, like contractors, plumbers, electricians. They're building like little carts for it. You jump on your bike, get through traffic. You can see more clients. You can handle more things. They're getting more business orders than personal use orders, which I found interesting, because I don't think that's the case here at all in the United States yet.
Right. And my experience is that it is going to become like that. I think what I've noticed from other cities like New York, Washington, D.C., and L.A. to a lesser extent now, if you need to get somewhere that's 4 miles away and you're dealing with traffic, whether it's morning or afternoon when people are getting home, taking an electric bicycle will get you there a lot quicker. No waiting in line or waiting in traffic. Go right to the front of the line. I mean, they're more narrow than motorcycles.
Right.
And, you have bike lanes.
Yeah. Yeah, and motorcycles can't go on the bike lanes, even though
sometimes.
Yeah. Sometimes it's necessary for safety, You were telling me you're an attorney, you're practicing law. What kind of law do you do? What kind of attorney are you?
Right. So I've been licensed with California State Bar since year 2000, actually. So 2000. And I initially started off as a criminal defense attorney, and I did that for maybe 5 to 7 years. And then I really went into kind of civil litigation and personal injury. And what that involves when you have a background in criminal defense is I started doing a lot of civil rights cases, so police misconduct, excessive force, wrongful death. So, I had cases where, basically people get killed by the police, whether on purpose or on accident. Yeah. And so that developed a practice of really kind of going after municipalities, like cities. Like, it's kind of an area where a lot of lawyers really don't know what you need to do in terms of perfecting your claim. These cases take long time compared to like a typical fender bender car accident case.
Yeah. Well, what's the average time for one of those cases to?
Well, I could take. It depends. Right now, I think I mentioned this when I first met you. There's a case I have out of Palm Springs.
Yeah.
And this guy, he died because he called the police, and the police showed up because somebody was breaking into his house. And for whatever reason, and it's all on video body cams, and it's all on the internet, the police opted to assist the person who broke through this guy's home at 2 a.m., private community, fenced house, and basically asked this illegal bounty hunter if he had his fatal cover, which means in police speak, if you're going to use less than deadly force, like a taser, you want to have someone who has fatal cover. And if you look at the footage of the police body camera, within a minute, essentially, of arriving at this home and seeing in the police video footage a door just smashed with a sledgehammer, 2 a.m., and hearing just a loud alarm. The officer goes upstairs and sees this guy dressed up in like just bulletproof gear, all kinds of things, pointing a gun at this guy, this dad, his 2 kids. And you hear the guy just saying, get the fuck out of my house, get the fuck out of my house, which is what I think every red-blooded American would say if you're at your house and you're in your boxers and someone breaks the front door with a sledgehammer at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
30 seconds after that, officer, do you have my fatal cover? Bounty hunter's like, okay. And is pointing the gun right at the decedent. And the cop is just like, you're going to get tased. Not asking questions, not trying to figure out what's going on, not de-escalating the situation, essentially just kind of making acts first and choosing to figure out what's going on after the fact, right? So he shoots the taser, the officer does, upstairs. This guy's staircase landing. Meanwhile, the decedent's in his bathroom, in his boxers, with the knife. Get out of my house, get out of my house, which you're allowed to do.
Right.
And he says, the officer does, you're going to get tased. And he holds the taser like he's in some kind of hip-hop video. It's like sideways.
Yeah.
Which is a problem because if you know anything about post-officer standards and trainings, post-sworn officers, every police officer in the state of California has to be sworn.
Right.
And trained before they're sworn as peace officer standards and training. You're not supposed to hold a taser sideways like that. You're supposed to hold it upright because it's got 2 pins in the very front.
Right.
And those pins are designed to hit kind of the middle mass of a person. And if those 2 needles don't connect, it's going to probably confuse the person once you shoot it, right? So the officer shoots it sideways like, he's hip hop or whatever. And one needle goes in, one needle goes out. The guy falls down, gets back up. What, are you serious? That's literally what it says. And then the officer says, shoot. And then the guy who has his fatal cover just shoots him dead. That case is more. Yeah, that case is a little bit more complicated because then what happened after the fact is that the officers are trying to make sense what happened, and they eventually arrest the bounty hunter who was helping the police officer and who basically complied with his orders.
Right, who took a command, yeah.
Yeah, and now he's getting prosecuted in Riverside County for homicide. Because there's an ongoing criminal case and there's constitutional rights that every person has if you're being charged with the crime, as opposed to what a civil case is, which is what I have with that case. That case is going to take way longer than a typical case. I think that...
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean your police officers, bounty hunters, families are involved. There's...
Right. Well, and more to the fact is that there's going to be probably in the criminal case... various decisions by a jury, by a judge, that could have findings and orders that affect a civil case also.
Yeah.
Right? Like it's something called collateral estoppel, where when an issue is litigated, and obviously in a homicide case, there's going to be various issues litigated. I've spoken to the attorney for the guy who's the defendant in the criminal case. They're trying to get the officers to testify in the criminal case. In the preliminary hearing, that officer was already saying, I plead the fifth.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it's kind of in flux, but that's kind of like a outlier. Typical case on a civil rights case, you're looking at maybe 2 to 3.5 years. They take a while because there's so many elements on them. There's normally in a case that involves a municipality called a motion for summary judgment. I think if you just heard the issues with Fox News versus Dominion and the settlement that just came out a few days ago.
Haven't heard it.
Yeah, so I guess Dominion sued Fox News for defamation in federal court, I think in Delaware, I think. And before the opening arguments actually started, they settled for $734 million. Fox News agreed to pay Dominion, the voting systems, because of all of the issues with Trump saying that the vote was...
I actually just read that. He's being sued multiple times. Yeah. Yeah, he's got it. Yeah. I was just reading that.
Well, the hardest part in these kinds of cases is...
That he swore that they couldn't... His claim was legit, that nobody could prove him wrong. And then they're also suing him for that. And then they proved him wrong, and now they got a $5 million lawsuit as well.
Well, no, I think that's a related issue. You're talking about the Mike Lindell.
That's what I'm talking about.
Yeah. He basically, I guess, made an offer, and then an arbitrator ruled that the person proved that Mike Lindell was wrong. So now the arbitrator ordered Mike Lindell to pay $5 million. What I'm referring to is the voting companies that essentially were used for the election during Trump versus Biden. Fox News did a whole campaign about how these machines are broken. They're basically giving votes to Biden instead of Trump, none of which was based on any facts whatsoever. And so Dominion sued for defamation of their company, saying that Fox News knew it was not untrue. There was a huge motion of summary judgment there. And in that case, which is not what you normally see, the plaintiff, the person suing the defendant, actually filed the motion for summary judgment, which is not what you would typically see. Is you'll see a defendant filing a motion for summary judgment. In my police cases, what you'll see is the police department or the city for the police department will file a motion for summary judgment for something called qualified immunity, or saying that the officer didn't know what he was doing was illegal, and because of that, he gets a pass, and the case should not be decided by a jury. And that's a very hard hurdle to overcome. A lot of cases get lost on motion for summary judgments because of qualified immunity. But it happened in that case. In the
which sucks because civilians never get that.
Yeah, well, it's hard, but Dominion did. They had evidence that proved that Fox News actually knew that there was nothing wrong with the voting machines.
Yeah,
and I think that's probably why the case settled for $734 million or something like that.
That's fucking huge money, man. What do you think of? I'm sure you've seen the videos on YouTube where you see people going to the police stations and kind of like not provoke, but like go to cops, wait for cops to come to them and say, "I don't answer questions. You can't talk to me like that." Have you seen those videos?
Oh yeah, and there's a lot of truth to that. Obviously, I think biggest issue that I see with those kinds of videos are people who just lack diplomacy.
Yeah.
Is, regardless of what your rights are, when you're approaching a person with a gun, it's probably good advice to be diplomatic.
Right.
Not angry. But you absolutely have rights not to talk to the police officer. You have constitutional rights. And if the officers ignore those rights, you can sue them. Now, are you going to spend $30,000, $40,000 on a case that's going to take 2.5, 3 years so that you can win $1?
Yeah. And that's kind of where I was going with the question. Why do they do it? Well, I mean, they do it for the fans and the followers and whatever. And like you said, there's some. And then I also want you to make the valid points of how important, what rights what's the positive we should take away from this. But what's their intention? They're going to fuck around with this for 2-3 years, try to make a buck or two? Well,
I think most people don't realize that that's involved. I mean, I think what happens oftentimes is a lot of huge verdicts get publicized on social media, and people think, well, I was wronged by the police. That means I could win. Well, potentially you can, but every case involves two parts. There's liability, which maybe you'll win liability. But are 12 people, or if you're in federal court, are 8 people going to say that you are owed $1 million because the officer slapped you? No. And are you going to get a lawyer who's going to spend his or her money litigating the case for 3 years just so that you can win $1 and they can be out of $30,000 for the case. So I think people don't know the complexity and nuances of actually filing a lawsuit against like a city who employs a police officer. If they did, they would understand the risk. What a lot of people don't know, for example, is even if you're a plaintiff today in California, if this is just a car accident, if you lose that case, then the defendant can actually get a court order for the costs, not of the attorney's fees, but of all the costs they spent in that case. And a typical case could be anywhere from $5,000 to $15,000. It's a straight up fender bender case. You can end up having to pay the person who hit you because maybe you didn't want to accept, the BS offer from the insurance company for like $4,000 or $5,000. Now you have a $20,000 judgment. And it's the thing I always spend a lot of time with all my clients. I always say, I love going to trial. Trial is fun. I feel like, I'm 5 years old doing show and tell all over again. But I'm not going to be the one that gets a court order that has an actual judgment collecting interest for $20,000 because you wanted $1 million that is not realistic.
Right. And
that happens in every kind of case, including civil rights cases, personal injury cases. It's a real risk to any litigant.
I know you're not an expert to throw numbers out there, but from the cases we do hear about that, this guy got like 2 million and 3 million and 4 million. What percentage do you think is over $1 million versus not even under 100,000?
Well, I mean, if you're referring to cases that actually go to trial and get verdicts, I think the far majority of most verdicts today are way, way below $1 million.
Yeah.
You just don't get any press attention, but every single day, every single city is probably dozens and dozens of verdicts that are maybe like 20,000, 30,000 that no one's ever going to really talk about. It's not going to be on social media, but for that actual person who felt wronged and who had to go against that guy who caused an accident or it's his insurance company and they were saying, no, it's your fault, you caused the accident. Meanwhile, they have hospital bills for like $5,000. They have a loss of wages for another $5,000. They have just this gut anger of being wronged and no one believing you. And sometimes, and I've seen it many times, even cases that I didn't do as well as I wanted to, just there's a very therapeutic healing in going through a civil jury trial. I've seen it many times in my cases where the jury would like hug my client. After like 2.5 years of like everyone saying it's her fault, the jury's just like, I'm glad we can help, and the clients just feel relieved.
Wow, that's deep. Yeah,
I've even seen my clients shake hands with the defendants, the people they're suing.
Yeah,
and that just shows you that it's a testament to the healing power of the civil justice system if it's done right.
Yeah. Yeah, that's never even thought about that. Like how powerful people can just kind of shake hands afterwards. But that doesn't happen that often either, right?
Well, it doesn't happen a lot, especially if I lose a case. If the client loses, then the client's kind of mad at the world still. So, right. But
somebody always loses, right? It's either the other side or this side. There's always a loser.
Right. Unless you settle mid-trial, which I've done also. But I think the reality is that there's something to be said about having a system that, first of all, for most people who are not attorneys, is very kind of alien. It's very weird and different. But when they actually participate in it, it's kind of more primitive and more ancestral than most of us expect. I mean, you basically are telling a group of strangers to decide this for us because a judge can't do it. The insurance company for the defendant can't do it. The plaintiff, no one's going to listen to the plaintiff. Plaintiff's lawyer's not going to do it. So you are putting your faith and your fate in the hands of these people who don't know you from Adam.
Yeah.
And they're like, I think you're right. And this is what the harm to you is valued at. And when it is done right, I think it's very, very powerful.
I joke around. It's just a joke with my wife every now and then. And I said, I wish I had a jury just to because this argument's going nowhere. Yeah. I wish there was a jury here where where I could just feed them this and you feed them that, and they just make a decision because this is stupid. Like, because it gets frustrating. You get into, silly arguments or conversations with anybody, with a partner, with business, with your significant other, etc.
Right.
So, anyways, I always thought like a jury thing, but yeah, that would be an amazing reward, especially if it goes your way.
Right. Yeah, and even clients who have lost, I think there's still kind of like an understanding, because typically when you get to that point where the jury is actually deciding the case, you've gone through the whole trial, they're in the room deliberating. What's going on is the client probably 9 times out of 10 has already said, I don't want this amount of money. I want more. And, sometimes some clients, do see more value in their case, don't see the holes in their case, and decide to opt to let the jury decide. And I've been pleasantly surprised and unpleasantly surprised. I've gotten verdicts that I did not believe I can get. And then I've lost cases where I thought it was just unbelievable. It was just like complete injustice. But that whole process, I love it still.
A quick story. My ex had a lawsuit with her company that she used to work for. And anyways, it was going back and forth. They settled it. We were already separated, right? But it goes back and forth. She gets some money. End the story. And I never thought about it. This was probably like 16 years ago. At that time, Sprint, this is when Sprint was like, a strong cell phone company. I was buying phones and flipping phones, and the guy calls me up and he's like, hey, I want to buy your phone. I was like, all right, no problem. He goes, can you meet me at the Sprint store in Beverly Hills? I said, yeah, no problem. So we meet at the Sprint store and he's all, okay, let's just activate and I'll pay you. The guy was in a suit, dressed nice, And I was like, all right. So I called a Sprint service and, they're all, thank you for calling Sprint, blah, blah. And your name, and I'm Roberto Valderrama. And they're like, oh, okay, verify your PIN. And the guy looks at me and he goes, I know you. And I was like, you don't know me. I'm not related to Wilmer Valderrama. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Anyways, let me finish the call. So anyways, I activate the phone. The guy pays me. And he goes, I know you. And I go, no, you don't. He goes, yeah, your ex's name is blah, blah, blah. And you have a son named blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know me. What's up, dude? What's going on? Like, what's the chances from the Valley? I'm going to go to Beverly Hills, sell this guy a phone, and he knows me. Long story short was, he was the defending attorney of the company that settled. And you know what he did? He looked at me and he goes, look, I was going to call you because I heard you guys were getting separated and I want to see if I can get some dirt on your ex, but I never called you. And I was like, oh, well, thanks, Dick. And then he goes and he looks at me and he says, she could have got so much more money. Oh. FYI, she could have got so much more money. She settled for less. And I was like... Anyways, so from that moment, I was like, fuck, man, this whole legal system is just a big fucking negotiation. And now, doing these interviews and talking to more people and more attorneys and everything else, I hear sometimes there's like, attorneys have these reserves of like, all right, you can settle this for $100K, but like try to close it at 10, and there's really that space, depending on the case, obviously. What's your thoughts on that story?
Well, no, I understand what you mean by that. And the reality is that, well, first of all, no one really knows the potential results. But they always have, and when we say reserves, you're talking about usually the insurance company that sets out a certain amount for the law firm. The way it's supposed to work is that the person who causes a car accident has insurance, and that insurance company has a fiduciary duty, meaning that they have to act in the best interest of the actual driver who caused the accident instead of their own.
Right.
That's the theory, and that's the ideal. That's not how it works. The way it works is that insurance companies and their adjusters are incentivized to screw over little car accidents and kind of make sure that every other potential claimant, any other potential accidents against this insurance company, knows that we'll fight tooth and nail, even if our client is totally at fault. Is that a breach of fiduciary duty? I would argue that it is. I would argue that the insurance company is breaching that fiduciary duty. So what do you have to kind of act like there is a level playing field and all the lawyers are acting according like they should? Well, then what you have is you have all these law firms and attorneys who just do insurance defense, who basically say, the guy who caused the accident, that's my client. Yeah. In my experience, and I've been doing this for 20 years, the person, the defendant, the person who has the insurance company who caused the car accident, never actually knows what's going on in the actual case, whether it's before a lawsuit's filed against them or after. And that's a problem because it's very common for the insurance companies to kind of hide the ball in terms of what the insured driver who caused the accident actually said and did at the accident, at the interview. You know, when you call the insurance company, this call is being recorded. They hold that evidence like you would not believe. They really hide the ball. And I'll be in a lot of depositions where I'm deposing the guy who drove the car accident. I'm like, listen, man, I know you're insured, and I'm not trying to sue you for everything. Do you know that? Do you know that I'm not trying to take you for everything you're worth? Like, no, I didn't know that. Did you know that I offered this amount, which is way less than your insurance policy? Did you know that? The attorney's like, objection. I'm like, this is a deposition. I'm asking what his knowledge, his basis of knowledge about this case. Do you know that I wanted to settle before ever filing a lawsuit? They never, ever know.
Yeah.
What's going on is that the reality, in my opinion, is that the law firm is really conflicted in not really serving the best interest of their client, which is the person, and essentially doing the bidding of the insurance company 9 times out of 10. I mean, sometimes there's exceptions, but for the most part, the attorneys hardly ever talk, the insurance attorneys ever talk to their clients, never know the struggle, the fear, the anxiety of having a quote-unquote lawsuit, being sued out of house and home and job and all that stuff. They never...
Fucking intimidating, man.
It is. And I asked them personally, and all I get from the attorney for the insurance company, aka for the driver at fault, is, objection, not likely to lead to admissible evidence, calls for speculation, And I'm like, do you even know what's wrong with the person you hit? Like my client, do you think they're faking? They're like, no. Do you know how much money how much money she spent because of the pain from this car accident? No. You admit you hit her, right? Yeah. And her car is completely messed up, right? Yeah. And, you get metal stronger than flesh, right?
You're good, dude.
No, but you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like they have so many games. What they're trying to do is, there's so much insurance lobbies that basically try to make every plaintiff into like a fraudster, a faker, a malingerer. And unfortunately, that's what a lot of lawyers like myself have to fight against, these ideas that people are really going to risk a lot of financial issues. People are going to really spend a lot of money and time and potentially have to pay the person who caused the car accident.
Yeah.
But that's the reality of the system we're in right now.
Question: how much does because you always hear like online and social media posts and everything, open an LLC, put everything under the LLC, keep it separate from you, this, that. If you have your LLC, develop your business credit. Once you get your business credit, start putting everything there. And if you get in a situation where, because I've heard cases where the 85-year-old woman hits a biker, and her insurance policy is only $50,000, but she has a paid off house. So they go straight for the house, right? And well, in that case, they went straight for the house and they take the house. Does an LLC protect you?
That's kind of a complicated question. And the reason it's complicated is because LLCs come in every shape and size. There's something called piercing the corporate veil. Typically, there is corporate protection from liability to a person personally. But if we're talking about someone who personally did something, but they have all their assets in an LLC or some kind of structure, an entity, it can protect them if they actually do it not just for the lawsuit or not just in name only. If you actually follow corporate minutes and actually do the actual difficult hard work of making a statement every year, filing every year, taxes, all that, then it will provide a certain level of protection for sure. If anything, it's going to make any asset you have in an entity a little bit more difficult to kind of go after if they have a case. Now, it really depends on the type of case. If it's like a negligence type of case, like someone did something wrong, it's going to be harder. If it's like something someone did personally, like someone stuck a gun at you and shot you in the leg, then it might be easier, but it's going to provide a level of legal protection. The attorneys who are suing you are going to have to go through a lot more jumps.
Right. And I am talking about exactly that. I'm talking about a fucking accident. I'm talking about like, whatever, you're handing a water bottle to your kid and you were reversing or forward and you hit somebody. Now they're like, I'm going to take your property and your motorcycles and your life, Like a LLC will give some kind of protection. This is why he's here today.
Well, it's not just me. It's many, many attorneys. But because of what we spoke about earlier today about the fiduciary duty the insurance companies have for their insureds, and when they breach it, if they breach it, you can actually sue the insurance company for a bad faith coverage against the person who caused the accident. And there's also something about actually opening the insurance policy. So it's very common for lawyers like myself, and I've done it many times, where somebody will have like a 15 or 30,000 minimal policy, and we try to just get whatever we can on that policy. And I'll tell my clients this is all they have. But, if they choose not to settle with you, and it's not them, the driver, it's the actual insurance company, and we give them an opportunity to settle for $14,999, and they have a $15,000 policy, and then they say no because we think your client's faking, or it really wasn't that bad, or what they always do in every case, essentially, except catastrophic cases, right? Just like cases where they want to make out the plaintiff like someone who's faking their injuries, and I go ahead and file the lawsuit, and I go ahead and go to jury trial and get a verdict for substantially more. Attorneys like myself, we don't actually go after the driver. If it's like $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, we go after the insurance company because we gave them an opportunity to settle the case and comply with their fiduciary duties, what they promised. Remember, insurance is just a promise. If something happens, I promise I'll take care of you. And if they breach that, then the actual driver has a claim against the insurance company, which I can just get the driver, the person I sue, to assign it to me, and then I can sue on his behalf the actual insurance company, in which case I think would be a stronger case, because then you have a jury trial, Joe Smith against Allstate, which,
I always advise people to up their insurance policies.
Oh, yeah. I think it's smarter to do that if you have a lot of assets.
Can you break that down?
Well, so,
even if you don't have assets, if you're on a motorcycle, up your insurance.
Right. Well, I mean, if we're talking about liability insurance, you always want a good amount. The reality with the motorcycle is you're not going to really do a lot of damage to anybody on a motorcycle crash except your own. So if you want to get bodily injury or bodily coverage for yourself, obviously that's always good advice. But in terms of protecting yourself from any kind of accident you get into, you always want to have a good coverage. I mean, I think minimal policy of $100,000 is probably good advice.
Minimal, yeah. That's usually what I tell people.
Yeah,
that's what I tell people. And an uninsured motorist. That's the other.
Oh yeah, definitely.
That's like I've witnessed. You probably don't know this. My listeners know this, but I used to work for Harley Davidson years ago, and when you sell a lot of bikes, you see accidents. And a lot of the accidents were, bad coverage. People didn't know what to do when they got into an accident. People didn't know it was a hit and run. People didn't have the right coverage. People had the minimum coverage. And people get fucked out of a lot of deals. Again, you only hear a few of the, whoa, somebody made money, but most of the time, people get fucking pretty fucked. They lose their bike. They're fucked up physically. They have a crazy amount of hospital bills. And a lot of this could have been prevented if they went to a good attorney and had, decent coverage, and if they didn't settle for less,
Well, one thing that I've seen from my experience is the number one thing I think a person can do to essentially strengthen their claim is not necessarily get the lawyer right away. That may sometimes work against you. What I see most people do wrong is not actually just take out their phones after the accident and just record everything. Document it, photograph it. Where's the place of rest of the vehicle?
Everything of the car accident, or even the person's character, or
I've had cases where the stronger the case is when, especially now that every officer has a body cam and the police are called, but many accidents the police are not called. But the stronger cases have all the physical evidence at the scene of the incident, especially when you're talking about things such as like tire transfer or paint transfer, skid marks, debris fields. These are things that no one's really thinking about because they're so caught up in the emotions of basically their lives being disrupted, being involved in something they didn't plan on, whether you caused it or not. The number one thing you can do is take out your smartphone after the accident, and you could start on video or start on your photographs and just photograph the actual damage, the actual roadway right where the cars contacted each other. Because in every case I've ever done, I'll take those photographs where people did that. I'll enlarge the photographs. You'll always see evidence. You'll see skid marks. You'll see, part of the motorcycle's paint right on the side of the car, even though the guy was like, that guy never hit me in that area. Well, then why is your blue car red from his red motorcycle, even though the motorcycle maybe had a point of rest that was like 15, 20 feet away?
Yeah.
So that's the number one thing. The number one thing is to document everything in your photographs at the scene. And then also you have to write down your recovery process. The thing that I think a lot of people don't realize about a claim if they're involved in a motorcycle accident is that the California law absolutely compensates you for pain, for suffering, for inconvenience, for anxiety, for loss of enjoyment of life, for loss of use of the motorcycle. All of those things are separate things that the law will compensate you for. But the insurance company that you're calling to say, hey, I didn't work or I can't ride my motorcycle anymore, even though that's the only thing I use to get to work, they're not going to tell you all of these things.
Yeah.
My fear of, my fracture, having a fracture, not being able to do what I do, every single one of those things basically will go away if you don't write down day 2, day 5, week 5, month 3. If you don't show in a journal, in a phone app, notes app, your rehabilitation process, it's going to be hard for you to be able to tell that to the lawyer that your attorney has to sue on your behalf, to tell that to the jury that has to decide what the value is of pain and suffering. I mean, that's essentially the biggest component of a case.
Yeah. Why do you think people don't document stuff so well? It's amazing how and I'll just give you an example. My mom was in a hospital not too long ago, and in the middle of the night, she had like an incident with the nurse. And she's like, I'm going to make a complaint. I was like, let's just write it down and submit it. Because if we don't write it down and submit it, it's just going to be what she says versus what you say. And then they're just going to kind of like, nothing's documented. But if we start documenting it, and this is something recently that I started doing, and I'll be honest, where I really started doing it is because of ChatGPT, because I would write things very powerful, but they were too emotional sometimes. There was too much anger or too much happiness, or it was too emotional. And then it just writes it down into a clean statement. And then that statement gets submitted, and I'm like, wow, look what happened for me submitting. Look what I just prevented. Look what I stopped. Look how that was recorded. Look how everybody got disciplined. Fucking amazing. Why are we so fucking lazy? And I think it's the school system, but I want to hear your thing.
Well, I think from the legal perspective, I think a lot of people don't appreciate that if you wrote something in a journal a day, a week, a month later, and then you're in front of a jury, strangers, and you're petrified, but you don't think about that a day after the accident, right?
Right.
But you're looking at 12 people who are going to decide your fate, and you want to remember. And a lot of people just go back to the telenovela melodrama of like, it hurt so bad, it hurt so bad. If you tell these 12 strangers who are sacrificing their time going to your jury trial about your pain and suffering, and you're just in tears and just saying it hurts, you're going to get $0. If you're able to pull up a journal and then, you can't submit that as evidence, but you can refresh your recollection and you can look at it, and it's going to help you remember what you actually felt. It's going to tell a story. And ultimately, the biggest thing I think humans are storytellers. I mean, that's how we process information. That's how we learn about how to go through the world and how you become a storyteller. And I always tell my clients that, believe it or not, as an attorney, all I am is a teacher of stories, and you're the storyteller. I'm not going to tell the jury how hard the case was on you, because if I do that, they're going to think I'm just a huckster. You have to tell your story, and you have to tell it in a very authentic way. If they believe you if they believe your life was stopped, or, you know, if in that Palm Springs case, your children no longer have a dad for the rest of their lives, the law will compensate for that if they believe that.
Right.
And there's nothing I can say to make them believe that. Only you can. And so I spend a lot of times with my clients in preparing them, and they don't understand the importance of writing stuff down. You can use it from an evidentiary perspective and in court of law, and you know, when things happen initially, there's, you know, it's therapeutic just to get things out emotionally.
Yeah, 100%.
It's more work.
Well, not only that, but there's the, and I've heard they were going to apply this to courts, but that's besides the point. The human memory sucks. The human memory sucks. So writing it and documenting it is obviously going to be a lot better, because in 6 months you might remember it, but it's a complete different, you know, it's a manufactured memory, you know, and now all of a sudden you remember the guy that hit you was wearing a yellow shirt, and now they're like, well, no, he wasn't. He was wearing a blue shirt. And it's like, well, fuck, man. Like I at that moment, you know, I thought it was this, or, you know, he was a Mexican guy, and then, you know, it was a white dude, you know, whatever the case is. Like, you know, the human memory is very, very flawed. So I think that's the other problem.
Right. Absolutely. No question about that. And one thing I use to combat that is in the legal profession, there's something called legal psychodrama, where essentially what I do with the client, maybe it'll be before they're deposed. So it's like maybe 6 months to a year later after the accident. I just have them sit down and I just tell them, you know, close your eyes, take a deep breath. Tell me what you heard that day. Tell me what you saw.
Do this.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow.
And I really try to get them to tap into their senses, because, you know, believe it or not, I think what people go through, it's all still there. I mean, I remember all my motorcycle accidents, right? But it takes a while to unlock that memory, because experience and language and words and things change. Life changes, health changes. But, you know, unlocking their ability to, and that helps them tell a story too. You know?
Perception changes.
Yeah. So how did you feel? What did you smell? What did you think? What part of your body hurt? I really get them to just kind of like off the cuff, go with anything they want to, kind of like Jack Kerouac style, just like vomit it all out to me, not being recorded. And then they can understand and unlock some of the emotions they went through because of this experience that they're basically putting their hands to a jury with. And I think it helps a lot.
That's deep. Yeah, of course that helps a lot. Any type of meditation, you know, is going to be beneficial to recall memories and stuff like that. I heard they were going to try to dismiss, I'm trying to use big court words, right? Dismiss like eyewitnesses, again, because of flawed memory. Like there's like a case building up where it's like, look, we can't rely on fucking eyewitnesses. We've been wrong so many times because somebody thought they saw somebody do something that didn't happen.
Well, I think what you're referring to is that there has been a growing area in the criminal justice system in criminal cases where they're allowing more expertise on the unreliability, the fallibility of eyewitness testimony. And so typically you wouldn't allow that. Typically an eyewitness is an eyewitness. If they said it, they said it. It happened, right?
But isn't that hearsay?
Well, no, it's not hearsay. Hearsay is when you say something for the truth of the matter asserted. So in other words, you're saying something that someone said and that it should be true. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, believe it, it's true. That's hearsay. Now, if you see something and you're repeating what you saw, that's not hearsay, because it's not a statement made at a court for the truth of the matter asserted. So hearsay is very different than that.
Oh, I wish I would have known that.
Yeah, but there is interesting duality as to hearsay and what you're saying about the fallibility of eyewitness testimony. They're just as fallible. A statement made at a court back at the day of the incident, that's hearsay. An eyewitness saying something back at the incident, now in court, is not hearsay. Well, that's a problem. And that's kind of why I think there's a growing issue, a growing belief in the criminal justice system that you can allow evidence to the jury to say, hey, eyewitness testimony, like it could be a human factors expert who basically all they do is testify as to how the human brain works when it comes to like a high stressful situation. Did you actually see this person? Well, I was dark and actually I was kind of scared, and It was maybe half a second in distance. No one's going to remember anything they saw for half a second.
Well, not only that, the bigger issue is when you have an incident happen and you get 6 witnesses and you have 6 different stories. Like, that's a fucking problem.
Yeah.
You know, let alone there's only one witness and you only have his story. It's like, wait a minute, come on. Like, if he was standing on this, it's like the whole, you know, the 2 people, you know, there's a number 9 here, but to you it looks like a 6, and to me it's a 9. Depending where I'm at, you know, what are you gonna believe? So right. I heard it's they're acknowledging it's a big problem.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely happening. I think that's.
I guess that's where more cameras come into play, more security, more body cams, people's cell phones, everything else.
Right. Well, that's helping.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, most people have their phones at the ready.
Yeah,
now.
but I bet you. Again, I like statistics, but I bet you that's helping fuck up people that the eyewitness. I bet you that's helping fuck up eyewitnesses.
Right. Well,
I saw this, and then the attorney gets to the fucking. Actually, we got this fucking camera. Look, they're wrong and done. You know what I mean?
Right. Well, in my experience, and I don't really know why, and I've seen this enough times, and it's not just in criminal; it's in civil cases also. There are eyewitnesses who will absolutely lie for reasons that are unknown.
Yeah.
Prove them with actual facts. I mean,
that I thought it was such a silly case. The black woman, there was a shooting. I forgot what state. There was a shooting, and this black woman came in to the police station and says, "I'll do the translation for sign language." And she didn't. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah.
She didn't know anything, and she had like 4, misdemeanors, and they arrested her later. But everybody's like, she didn't do anything.
Right. She was making it up.
She was making it up, but why volunteer to make it up?
Like, yeah. And I, ultimately we won't know what's in the deepest recesses of a person's psyche, why they maybe want attention, why they say things, but it happens more than you think. You know what I mean? Like I have this one case right now. It's a motorcyclist got killed, and so he had the right of way, and it's against the fire department. The fire department, according to an eyewitness who saw the whole thing, saw the fire truck reverse from the wrong lane of travel. So it was at an intersection, and this kid was riding his motorcycle to his mom's house. And so as the fire truck was reversing, it reversed right in front of this kid. And the eyewitness said, yeah, I saw it. The fire truck literally is parked in the wrong lane of traffic. The motorcycle is literally laying in the wrong lane of traffic. They're both laying in the lane where you wouldn't make a left into, you would be coming out of, So instead of making a left from eastbound to northbound, like we're required to under the state of California, they reversed from the southbound lane where you're supposed to not be reversing, right? And all the evidence is there.
Yeah.
And eyewitnesses there. And then 2 other eyewitnesses come out of their condo, and they see the accident also at aftermath. Everyone says fire truck's in the wrong lane. Motorcycle is in the lane that is the wrong area for the fire truck to be traveling in. Everyone agrees to that. Then there's this one guy who basically was contacted by the police who was investigating this accident, because the guy's dead, right? The kid. 5 days later, the police calls him up, and the guy's like, I saw the accident. And they ask him about it, and he says, I was driving my truck, and I saw the fire engine make a left onto the correct lane of traffic or travel northbound from eastbound. And that's when the accident happened. I saw it through my rear view mirror. And so they went to depose this guy. And it turns out, according to the police CAD report, the CAD report is computerized automated dispatch records. This guy called the police like 4 hours later after the accident, after there was already on the media and TV news channels, all that stuff, right? And then we're asking him at this deposition, like, you saw the accident? It's like, yeah. Like, did you go back like all the other eyewitnesses did and get interviewed by the police? Like, no. Like, what did you do? I went home. And when did you call the police? Oh, right after. I'm like, okay, well, this CAD report says you called like 3 hours later. It's like, well, my wife told me it was on Facebook, Orange Buzz, and where did the motorcycle hit the fire truck? And I showed him the picture of the accident, right? And he couldn't even process it. And then what I did is actually had my assistant videotape how or what a vehicle would see in the rear view mirror. And literally nothing what he said is physically possible. You would not see the accident from the rear view mirror of where this happened. It's just there's like a barrier that would have blocked it. The way that the road turns makes it essentially impossible to have him tell the truth. But he's still standing by it.
Yeah.
Why?
He's being fucking stubborn. When you talk about this, there's devastating and sadness, and it's fucked up, and you're doing a very noble thing. Thank you for your services, and I'm sure you get fucking compensated pretty well for your services. But when you talk about these cases and these puzzles, it's kind of exciting, no?
I mean, I love it.
It sounds like again, besides all the bad, it sounds like, I don't want to say fun, but intricate.
Yeah, I love the intricacy of what I do.
Going back and trying to get the rear view, and wait a minute, how the fuck can he, like different views from the building? Like it's like a mystery, or it is a mystery.
Every case is like Chinatown for me. I feel like Jack Nicklaus.
Yeah,
Chinatown.
Jack Nicholson. Yeah,
or Nicholson. Yeah,
yeah. I fucking love that movie.
Yeah, I love it too, man.
I used to have an office. I would just leave that playing all the time.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but that sounds like so much fun. Now, tell me if I'm wrong. There was a moment where I was just going to court for a while. I was dealing with something, family things, and I would go to court and I would see attorneys, and I would see these attorneys with just fucking boxes of files, and I'm like, oh my God, dude, like that sucks. Like I would not want to do that. All day you're in fucking court. All day you're hauling files. All day you're taking calls. All day you're dealing with some kind of drama, and I don't know. That sucks. Is that a certain type of attorney, or is that most attorneys' lives?
Well, I think if you're asking today, I think most attorneys aren't like that anymore. I think the legal industry has really kind of taken technology, especially after COVID and the pandemic. And literally, I've tried cases with just my iPad Pro. Presented evidence. I have it could be like 50 gigabytes of documents, and I can present it. So I don't think anymore it's quite like that. Some old school attorneys, it could still be like that.
15 years ago too.
Yeah. 15 years ago, there were practice models where, it would very much be like that. I mean, I've had cases where it would be carts and carts of paperwork because not every judge liked technology. Not every courtroom had a projector. But I don't think that's no longer the case. I mean, I've done trials in...
no pun intended.
Yeah. Riverside. Everyone's got technology now. Everyone has the ability to be efficient if you choose to be.
Well, it's interesting because a lot of stuff was still paperwork before COVID. And they were prolonging it. There was even certain businesses and certain things, government stuff that you had to fax still. And when COVID hit, look how fast they made that change. Like I have a lot of friends that are developers, and it's like all of a sudden, from going and waiting in line and showing the blueprints, all this, now you're doing Zoom calls and you're just fucking emailing them and they're just popping it open and going. So it's amazing how fast when they need to make that change, they made that change. So now the legal system's like that.
Well, and now with ChatGPT,
I was just going to bring that up. Tell me.
Well, I think there's going to be a huge disruption. It's not just to like writers and internet content creators. I think it's going to be legal industry, accountants. I think there's a reason why every
doctors.
Doctors.
Did you hear the dog case?
No.
So I just heard this on the Joe Rogan podcast. This guy's dog was sick. He took him to the veterinarian, and they did a blood test, and the doctor says, well, based on these results, your dog's not going to make it. He's got a couple weeks, if that. The guy requested the blood results, and he went to ChatGPT 4, and he put in, he goes, help me understand what these blood test results mean. And then ask me whatever question you need from the results. So I start filling out, and it starts saying, oh, well, this is this is that, this is that. All right, let's come up with cures, and what's the cause of this? The guy diagnosed what it was. It was like it was a special tick, like a Lyme tick or some kind of tick that's a little bit more, but there's a treatable way. He got the treatment recommendation, went to another veterinarian, got the medicine, saved his dog.
Wow. Yeah, I didn't hear that. Yeah, that's awesome.
This is all over the news. This was like 2 weeks ago.
Right. Well, how about all the layoffs in the tech field? That's all ChatGPT. You know what I mean? You don't need customer service reps anymore.
Well, look at Elon Musk's statement. Okay, that he let go of with the Tucker Carlson interview. You saw that one, right?
I didn't see that. No.
It was like maybe a week ago.
No, I heard of it. I'm just like I can't watch Tucker Carlson for some reason.
Yeah. Well, he was like, you fired people from Twitter. You know, how many people did you fire? And he goes, well, we're probably at 20% of what we were at. And he's like, you fired 80% of the people. And he's like, yep. And this is before ChatGPT. You know, this was, 2 years ago or something like that? And he goes, how did you do it? And he's like, well, I guess you don't, if you're not supporting, some bullshit message, or he said something Elon Muskish.
Right.
And he's like, you only need 20% to execute. Now with ChatGPT, it's even going to be crazier.
Yeah.
And the point of the doctor thing is if this thing saved a dog, imagine if you have a MRI inspector or a reader, and the guy looks at the results and everything. Now that's very detailed. If he misses something, but ChatGPT can pick it up, then you don't need that MRI guy no more. You don't need the sonar guy anymore. You don't need...
Right. Well, or you can use both. But right. Yeah, since I deal with a lot of injuries and with clients and all that, what I've noticed is there are different types of doctors and calibers of doctors. And a lot of times people don't really make that difference. But there's some people who just blow my mind. Some doctors who just like are on top of their game and, they're amazing. And then there's others that are just kind of like mills. You know what I mean? They're just seeing a patient for 5 minutes, in and out, as many as they can. So, but I think there is going to be a disrupting force, some for the good, some for the bad, because of ChatGPT. It's going to be awesome.
It's going to be awesome. And then back to the doctors. There are doctors that only give you 5-10 minutes time. You're just waiting in a bigger waiting room to the smaller waiting room to a private waiting room, and then they see you for 5-10 minutes, and all right, get out of here, kick rocks. The other issue that I believe is a problem is I feel, again, it's just an opinion, but I feel doctors are, like, for example, if you talk about a pharmaceutical rep, you're like, okay, ethically, you're a fucking dick, dude. But how many pharmaceutical reps are talking to doctors? And how many doctors see how many pharmaceutical reps getting bribed or getting pushed, or, hey, if you bring us, if you send us this way, or if you send us that way, or we have a hospice, or we have this, there's a lot of fucked up things that over the year you just start like, okay, let me just hint, and this person's not, I don't know.
Yeah, no, it absolutely happens, but can I quantify that other than just kind of like
it happens
instinct?
Every once in a while.
I don't think so. You know what I mean? I mean, it's unfortunate, but that's, the way of the world. There's a lot of corruption regardless of where you're at in the world, including, California.
And I guess if I was to bring it back, that would be my point with ChatGPT. It would kind of eliminate that.
It would help, but like, look at all these kids using ChatGPT for their homework.
Yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I mean, I think it's unavoidable until it becomes avoidable. But the reality is that technology is going to cause a lot of ripples and waves and going to destroy, like it always has. Like the horse and buggy got wiped out, with the automobile. Like the microwave killed a lot of industry. It's just a reality of technology. Technology is always going to have to force humans to adjust to what can now be done with technology. And I think ChatGPT is just another version of that.
Yeah, the disruption.
Yeah, look at streaming. I mean, man, we can just pause a TV show and come back to it whenever we want. Like, it's unbelievable.
Watching TV growing up.
Oh, yeah. You had no options. You
had to be home at a certain time. You had to tell your brother or sister to shut the fuck up because you're watching something. You can't hear it. You had to wait to pee for the commercial break.
Yeah. Absolutely.
It's wild. And now on demand.
Well,
look what we're doing now.
Yeah.
This is fucking amazing.
Oh, I love it, man.
I get people from, around the world. Hey, man, I didn't know about that, and that was good information. Or hey, I learned this, or I learned that. I'm like, wow, man, thank you. You know, it's amazing. You couldn't do this 20 years ago.
Oh, not at all.
You had to get picked up by a big fucking station, and I think people overall are happier compared to people in the 80s and 90s. You know, especially our age.
Right.
Do you remember our age? Like, you're a fucking cool, hip dude. You're fucking wearing the crazy shoes. You got the crazy watch. You're the buffest attorney I've ever seen in my life. Do you remember when you would see somebody 40 that was 40 years old?
Yeah, it looked like an old
20
man.
years ago. It looked like a fucking old. They were wearing a suit. They looked miserable. Fucking midlife crisis. Like, how much has that changed?
Well, to some extent, it also hasn't changed. I mean, I see some colleagues my age who look like they're in their 50s or 60s, and I think it really has to do with a lot of science and, you know, a lot of discoveries in terms of longevity and things like that. So it's changed to a much greater extent than it did back then. But I think there's still a lot of people who are just deciding to just work nonstop, regardless of their sleep, regardless of their diet, regardless of whether they're going to work out or not, until like they're old and they're done.
Let's just jump in. We'll end soon. Let's jump into your lifestyle, your choices, your fitness, your health. When I met you on Sunday, you were in a fucking tank top, ripped as fuck. You were wearing those
Vibram 5 fingers.
Vibrant 5-finger shoes, and you were riding your EV bike. You wear those to the courtroom. Tell me about your routine.
Well, so, you know, I've been following my routine for a very long time. You know, basically I do things because I believe in, you know, epigenetics. I believe that certain lifestyle decisions will cause certain genes in our body to be activated and others not to. And so what I mean by that is, for example, I barely ever eat any sugar, barely ever eat any carbohydrates. I basically stick to just a lot of protein and a lot of fat. It's like, I guess, ketogenic diet. You know, I haven't taken a hot shower in years. I stopped taking hot showers in probably 2012.
Really?
Oh,
back then, old school.
Yeah, and and it's scary, but if the scariest thing you kind of beat in the morning, your rest of the day is going to be pretty quick.
Yeah.
So, and then I like to lift very heavy weights. You know, I like to train.
What's your bench? Max?
Well, I don't actually bench, but I'll do a lot of shoulder presses,
kettlebells.
Kettlebells, and I try to do heavy weight that actually scares me physically, like emotionally. I'm like, I'm going to hurt myself, and I think that helps.
Yeah.
So I follow. I mean, I've been following this since I guess 2012.
So ketogenic. So would you say high fat, moderate proteins, minimal carbs and sugar, or would you say like carbs and fat kind of 50-50?
I've done both, but what I think is best for me is just high protein. If you're lifting, if you're not lifting, then you know the protein is just going to get converted into glycogen. And it's going to be stored by your muscles and your liver, and it's not going to really do anything if you're not lifting. If you're lifting, you need the protein to basically build from the heavy weights.
Yeah, that's actually been my new conclusion right now. My new conclusion is I don't take enough protein.
Oh yeah,
supplements or eating or anything. So this last 4 days, because I've been lifting pretty heavy lately, but I'm just kind of stuck. Like, I'm not getting bigger. I'm not getting smaller. I'm just stuck. I've just been stuck for like 2 years.
Well, what's fasting, man. I do a lot of fasting.
I do a 18-6.
Well, I do like 4 or 5 days.
Oh, you do 4 or 5 day fast?
Absolutely. Right now I'm.
Damn.
Yeah, wow. It's not easy.
While lifting heavy?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
See,
and
that's what contradicts me. Like,
it does. It sounds like it, but if you look at the research, the actual fasting, especially once you get into autophagy, and it takes about 72 hours to get into a state of autophagy. There's so much science regarding growth hormone, increased testosterone, using your fat stores for energy.
Mm-hmm. Which is the keto. That's when you get into ketosis,
right? And that actually works. It's actually scary though, and the hardest part is actually falling asleep. You feel scared. You feel like you're in survival mode when you don't eat for like the third day. your mind is way more sharp and you actually get more productive. But when it comes to sleeping, it becomes a challenge. And I'll take supplements like melatonin, various other supplements. I watch a lot of Andrew Huberman podcasts, and he has like this whole like protocol on how to get better sleep. And I'll follow that because it's very difficult to sleep when you haven't eaten for like 3-4 days.
Really?
Yeah.
What about supplements like iron, proteins?
That's in meat, man. That's all in meat.
I know, but if you're fasting for 3 days, 4 days, do you take any supplements like I forgot, there's like stuff that you can mix with the water and you can kind of balance certain things out, or you just go raw?
Well, no, if I have a hard time sleeping, I'll eat just salt because sodium, and then I'll take magnesium and potassium, basically electrolytes. I'll put them in water, and that will help me get rid of that feeling of like dread.
Yeah.
You'll feel scared.
So do you fuck around with liquid IV?
No.
Yeah, that liquid IV is a what do you call it? Electrolytes. You mix it with water. They sell it at Costco. It's pretty good.
Yeah.
It's like the only fucked up thing is like 45 calories or something.
Right.
But it's sodium, magnesium, and a few other things of that sort.
And there's also exogenous ketones that I take sometimes when I can't sleep. And that helps because you actually feel like you're eating something, but it doesn't have any calories. But, it helps.
Interesting. Yeah, I'm at that point where I got to do the next phase where I got to start fasting more, or I'm going to have to just like eat chicken with broccoli or something.
Well, there's a good app. It's called Zero. Have you heard?
Yeah. I love Zero.
Yeah.
I love Zero. It's a great app. I've had it for years.
Yeah, no, that's what I use. And it kind of helps me.
I haven't been using it that much, but I've had it for years.
You got to use it, man.
Yeah. And your workouts mostly at home? You have your own routine?
Yeah, no, I have a backyard gym, basically. I have a squat rack. I have, shoulder press rack. I have, what I do a lot of is kind of like a HIIT routine, high intensity interval training, but with heavy weights, and then like hit the punching bag. Heavy lift, and then do box jumps. Heavy, and then do something really quick, just to kind of work out the fast twitch muscles, because I think that's really neglected as most people get older. They just don't understand the importance of agility. Yeah. Especially as a motorcycle rider, you really need that. I've seen guys 100. That I've rode with for a long time, and like they're not so agile anymore.
You know what I think? I have no science to back this up, but it's just, again, my opinion. You know what I think helps with that?
What's that?
The Quest. Have you used the Quest, the VR?
Oh, my son has that. Yeah.
I'm not kidding. There's certain games there because you can get it so fast that you're just like, because you got to hit shit. Like, for example, there's a few workout games you just try out. It's like a $16 membership a month. You can quit anytime. Try that. Yeah. All it's doing is like throwing stuff at you so quick. But you have to also say, like, you have to punch this, or you have to kick that, or knee this, and then it gets faster and faster and faster. And you're just like, and I'm like, dude, this is so good, because the only thing I can compare that to is riding a motorcycle. That's what I compare it to. When I get on the bike and I'm looking at people's mirrors and where their tires are going and where they're turning and how the car's leaning and how the road's turning and that's what it feels like. And I believe that practicing on this is a big advantage.
No, I've used my son has a Quest VR, and I try a boxing game. It's so fun.
It'll fuck you up. Yeah, I do the I put weights, like 5-pound weights.
Oh wow!
And then go at it. I'm drenched, dude. Yeah. Like 14 minutes. I'm drenched. I feel like a bitch. I'm like 14 minutes. Look at me.
Right, but you're really trying to avoid getting hit too.
Oh, your breathing gets all fucked up. You get out of shock.
Yeah, because it's easy to hit, but to actually avoid hitting or using that agility to like duck or back up is not something that I think a lot of people do in like civil society.
You might have it if you don't. I recommend it. So on the Quest, they have like an elastic band where you put on your head. It comes with an elastic band, Right. It sucks ass.
Oh, yeah, you replace it, right?
I replaced it with the one that you turn.
I got that.
Okay, game. I just got that, so now I got back into the Quest. It's the only thing I play that's a game, but I swear to you, I click on my watch, our Ultras, and I get the calories burned. And I'm like, dude, this is fucking great.
Yeah.
Last thing, tell me about your band.
You know, I don't know who makes it, man. But basically, as a motorcyclist, I always want to be able to see if I'm following GPS on the phone or whatever, or on the watch. And so they put a strap on the side of your hand, so you don't have to actually look while you're riding. You don't have to lift your right hand from the throttle. So I can like keep throttling the motorcycle and look at what's going on in terms of which direction to go, where to make a left. And it helps with that. It's, it seems a little
Do you
silly.
put it over your glove when you
I don't wear gloves when I ride.
Gloves, right?
Yeah, I don't understand. I like to feel the motorcycle more.
Yeah.
Gloves have always been kind of a way to kind of separate the feeling of how much the motorcycle is vibrating, how motorcycle feels, how the road feels. It's just a little more separation than I prefer.
Last thing, you have a few bikes. Which bikes are they?
I got 2 GSs. I got a 2012 is what I rode today. And then I got a 1996 GS. I got a 1997 KTM 620. It's like a enduro. I got a 64 Honda Dream. I have a 1970 Moto Guzzi Ambassador.
Fuck.
And then I got, I think that's all the motorcycles. And then I got a few electric bikes. Got that one Huck and some other ones.
You got me beat, man.
Oh yeah,
You got me beat.
well, I love them, man. I can't stop riding motorcycles. My partner, she doesn't like it because she's always worried that I'm not going to come back. I've been in enough motorcycle accidents to, I guess, give her cause for concern. But the reality is that, I'm sure you feel like a child, dude.
I feel like a fighter jet pilot.
Yeah. Well, I mean, just the excitement.
It's the excitement, everything about it. But I feel like a fighter jet pilot, which I had a fighter jet pilot, and I was like, how would you compare a motorcycle to flying a jet? He goes, actually pretty similar.
Yeah, no, I love it.
It's very three-dimensional. Like when you drive, it's like left, right, straight. But on a motorcycle, because you're leaning and mirrors and tucking and rolling, and then your bars are changing, it's very three-dimensional. And he says very much.
Well, I think a lot of people non-motorcyclists do not appreciate is that it involves being active with your vestibular system. The same system that helps us stand on one foot. You can't cheat it. You can't lie. When you're negotiating a curve on a road, you have to look with your eyes. Your eyeballs are using that part of your brain and your ears. Sense balance. How much am I leaning? How much should I lean? Where do I want to be as opposed to where I'm at? If you're in a car, you can just basically be on a phone texting.
I could be on my laptop
Yeah.
and write a fucking essay. After riding a bike, I could be in my, especially now with the Tesla. It's like, dude, come on.
Yeah, but on the bike, there's an honesty there. You have to be critical about what you can and cannot do, and if you're not, you're gonna crash.
Yeah. Gabriel, thank you so much. You're welcome on the podcast whenever you ever want to just talk about something, mention something, or just want to bullshit. Please hit me up.
Yeah.
This was a great experience, and I appreciate you being here, man.
Thank you for the invite, and I look forward to hearing it.
Last thing, website, email, phone number. How can people get a hold of you?
Just my website's avinalaw.com, avinalaw.com. All my contact information is right there.
Instagram.
Yes, it's all there. It's all avinalaw.com.
Awesome. Thank you, man.
Thank you, sir.